Daf Yomi Tractate Bava Batra, page 35b, top of the page, the words Islay Dara de Mamona. He has financial involvement. The Gemara answers there in the case of exchange for this one, the buyer has financial involvement. And for that one, the seller has financial involvement, since each of them has a definite claim to owning the offspring. As each of them owns the cow or maidservant at one point, it is reasonable for the court to divide the offspring between the two parties. By contrast, here, in the case of Rav Nachman, if it belongs to this master, it does not belong to that master. And if it belongs to that master, it does not belong to this master. Only one of the two litigants has any claim to the property, as it belongs either to the ancestors of this one or of that one. Therefore, a ruling to divide it would not be appropriate. Amri Nardai, the sages of Narda say, in a case where two parties disputed the ownership of a certain property, and the court ruled that whoever is stronger prevails, if one from the marketplace who had no claim came and took possession of it, the court does not remove it from his possession, as Rabbi Chia teaches in Tosefta Bava 10:14. A robber of the public, meaning a robber whose victim is unknown, is not called a robber, since it is unclear from whom he robbed. No one is able to demand payment here too, since it is unclear whose property it is. Neither can demand that it be taken from the robber. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, Lo Shmei Gazlan. Actually, he is called a robber, and the property is taken from him. And what is meant by he is not called a robber? It means that the stolen item is not subject to being returned, and consequently, he is unable to fully atone, as he does not know who to repay. The Mishnah teaches, with regard to certain types of property, that their presumptive ownership is established by use of a duration of 3 years from day to day. The Gemara comments from Abba says, nevertheless, there are cases where presumptive ownership is established immediately. For example, if the prior owner himself lifted a basket of fruit from that field for the possessor, that immediately is sufficient to establish the presumption of ownership, and the prior owner can no longer lodge a protest. Rosvid says, but if the poor owner stated a claim and said, I brought him down into my field solely to consume the produce, for example, as a sharecropper, he is deemed credible, and the halacha that the prior owner is deemed credible were he to state such a claim applies only if he stated it within 3 years of when the other person took possession, but after 3 years he is not deemed credible. Rav Ashi says Rav Kahana, if in fact he did bring him down into the field solely to consume the produce, what was here for him to do to present the possessor from the establishing a presumption of ownership? Rav Kahana said to him, he should have protested during the first 3 years and publicized that he had granted the possessor rights to the produce alone. The assumption that lodging a protest would be effective must be correct, since if you do not say so, then in the case of this mortgage, according to the custom in Surah, a city in Babylonia, in which it is written at the completion of these years, this land will be released to its prior owner without any need for the prior owner to give money. If the creditor were to hide the mortgage document in his possession, the land is purchased, and that is why it is in my possession. Here, it is also the case that he would be deemed credible. That cannot be, as it is reasonable that the sages would institute a matter such as this type of arrangement, that people can be led to buy it to suffer a loss. Rather, in the case of the mortgage, the debtor should be protested, and not by protesting, he causes his own loss here too. In the case of the field, the owner should have protested. Yehoshua says that Rav says with regard to a Jew who comes to claim land, due to having received it from a Gentile. He is like a Gentile in terms of which legal claims are available to him. Therefore, just as a Gentile has the ability to establish the presumption of ownership over by means of a document, so too a Jew who comes to claim land due to having received it from a Gentile has the ability to establish the presumption of ownership only by means of a document. Rava said, and if the Jew went to a prior owner who claims that he still owns the land,